Sorry, I'm still dancing. I love that 30 seconds music so much. I don't know if I'm the only one. I feel like I want to dance and all everything. So hey, hello everybody. Super happy to be here again. Excited. That is the second episode of the DevRel show. So you know what? If you're new to the show, you're not missing that much. It's the second time, and it's a show I plan to do every other week. Usually on Thursday, so it's an exception. Sometimes I'm going to have exception, but it should be usually every other Thursday at 3 p.m. ET or EDT, Eastern Time Zone, or the summer one, the Eastern Time Zone during daylight saving time. And as I said, with some exception, because my guests are not all located close to my time zone, and sometimes, just things happen. We have life, we have work, others things to do. So on that note, again, super excited to be here. That's an idea I had a long time ago. It's nice to finally being able to make it happen. And so I'm excited for this show. Hopefully my mic is good. Someone is telling me that the mic is cutting out. Hopefully my mic is good now. Not sure what happened. But so second episode, and I think I could not ask for a better guest as my second guest on the show. Alejandra Thomas from Testkube. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hola. Hi, everyone. My name is Ale Thomas. It's short for Alejandra. I'm from Mexico, but I am based in New York now. I am a developer advocate. Yeah, that's my Twitter. You can find me as Pika Codes on every social platform pretty much. And I am currently a developer advocate at Testkube. I've been here for about a year now. Past a year now. So very happy to be talking with you, Fred, and with you, whoever is watching. Thank you.
Awesome. And what's interesting with Hallie is that in theory we work for the same company. So if you know me, or if you've seen any other live stream I've done, I always say I work for Cube First, which is true. But Cube First is a project from the company Cube Shop, and it's the same thing for Trace. Come on, I was going to say Trace Test. For Testkube, Trace
Yes.
Test is another project we have in house. So we're part of the same company, but we don't work together because we're so focused on each of our projects. So we meet once in a while for a coffee chat, just talk about DevRel. But I would say we're so focused on our project that it's like if we're part of like two different companies. So
Yeah.
it's why it's exciting to have you here.
We'd be too powerful too if we were in the same team. So we can't handle that.
I think that would be too much. Yeah, I think it would be too much. Yeah. It would be a good and a bad thing.
Yeah, too much energy. But don't worry, we're gonna give you all the gossip on the company today.
Yes, that's the show. That's the show for that. If you want to learn about the gossip, that's happening today. So, Hallie, for the people that don't know you, like who are you, and tell me a little bit about your career in tech.
So like I said, I am originally from Mexico. I have a degree in industrial and systems engineering. I graduated a few years ago, but even though my degree was very manufacturer and very statistics, data analytics heavy, I always had an interest for software engineering, which is why while I was going to university for a different degree, I was studying on my own to become a software engineer. So once I graduated, my first job out of school was as a software engineer. I knew what I wanted and I went out and got it. And I just loved it. I just love technology. I love learning new things. I love tinkering around with code and creating stuff. And that's pretty much what I did. And then at the same time, so a little bit of background about myself, I actually worked full-time jobs throughout college because I needed to pay for my tuition. I was in a private school, and that included working also in marketing. So I had this background in marketing where I really liked, community work, because I was actually a community manager. Warning. I was like, what is that? But anyways, so I had this background in marketing where I really like social media, and I worked with all of that and content creation and stuff on the side. That when I was also a software engineer post college, I started doing my own content on my account that's there, Pika Code. So it's something that I really enjoyed, right? Like having a community, sharing what I learned, especially being self-taught. I had a lot of things that I think were relatable to other people that were in the same journey as me. So that helped me build a community, connect with people. And when I was having this software engineering job and doing this on the side, I discovered that DevRel was a thing, and it pretty much connected or had this mesh, had this combination of two things that I really loved, which were community work and also technology. So that's what brought me into developer advocacy, and it's been great. I get to be still very technical and play around with new tools and new stuff and learn every day, learn something new every day. But at the same time, I get to interact with users and I get to share what I'm learning, right? Because that's the reality of the role. I learn about my own product every single day, and teaching our users and the outside community is a great job.
It is.
Be paid for that.
yeah, that's what you said a couple of things. So just about what you said, being paid for that. That's funny because the way I came into DevRel is because I was already doing some of the things that a developer advocate does, but on my free time, a little bit like you were doing with your content. So I was writing blog posts. I started to speak at conferences. I was organizing meetups, and I was doing this for fun. Like everybody has their way of having fun. That was mine. Like I just wanted to share.
We're nerds.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally like I just like to share my knowledge if I can with people, the things I know, the thing I discover. I love to help people, but also always volunteer in different ways, and like organizing those meetups were a way to volunteer in a way. I was doing that for the community. I was not doing that for money. Actually, it probably cost me money most of the time to do those kind of things, but I was doing it with pleasure. And at some point, someone at Microsoft approached me and they were like, "Hey, would you like to be paid to do exactly what you're doing, but like under the Microsoft umbrella?" And I was mind blown because first I really didn't want to work at Microsoft at the time. That was the time when Microsoft was quite evil, and I was like, no, I'm not sure I want to. And they were really, how can I say, I'm looking for the word in English. Intense is not the word I'm looking for, but like they connect with me a couple of times, and they try to
persistent.
Get through me. Persistent was the word I was looking for. Thanks. And actually, they sold me something really interesting, and my job was amazing because I was doing open source, open data, interoperability inside of a Microsoft that was not quite open. That was previously before Satya Nadella, so less like the mindset that Microsoft has today. But like that long story to say that when I started to do my job, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting paid to do, like, this is what you told me, I understand. But like now I'm realizing that I'm getting paid to do that. And actually, I was getting paid more. I was getting paid more than when I was a software developer. So I know it may not be totally the case anymore. It used to be a time where developer didn't have like a really huge salary. In the last couple of years, it went a lot better. Developer advocate were paid a lot more. Now I think the parity can be ish the same depending on where you live, depending on the company you work for. But I was just amazed about that. And yeah, my first task was to, like, they gave me a corporate credit card, and they were like, okay, go talk to like the community leader and invite them for dinner or drinks or coffee. And that was my first task. Like, they were paying me for me to pay people to have a drinks, coffee. And that was a way to connect with people. That was a way to say to people like, hey, we're not that evil. We want to connect with you. We want to be friends. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Microsoft, but super story to say, like, yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. Like we do those things they were getting paid for. But I think it came back to being passionate about it, because like you would pay some of my friends to do that, and they would not even touch the money with a pole. And it would like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to speak in front of people. I don't want to connect with people. I don't want to like be in that community. But for me, as much as I miss coding full time as a developer, like the people centric part of the role is so important to me, and I feel like it's what you were saying too, like the fact that like you can still be technical, you can still code, you don't code as much as you code when it was a full-time developer, but like there's a people-centric attribute of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and thanks, Todd. Todd, never too much of a good thing. It was referring to what we said at the beginning. If we had to work on the same project, yeah, I love your hat, Todd. It's totally you. This
I love
guy
it.
can eat a ton of those all the time. He is the guy for that. And Santiago saying hi. Santiago
Hi.
Fernandez. So Santiago Fernandez. So like, does Christian or Jairo has like another brother or a cousin? Like Christian is an employee at KubeFirst, and his brother Jairo just joined the team, and they're both Fernandez. So I'm wondering, like, is it gonna someone else from the family? And by the way, Yagi, just before we move next, let me know if the mic is still cutting out. I know Hallie may freeze once in a while, like it just happened in the beginning. I think your internet connection can be a little bit flaky, but so far so good.
Yeah.
It's only happened once, so I think we should
My
be
internet
good.
sucks. So
Yeah.
sorry for that in advance.
Yeah, and in New York, you should have good internet.
Oh my God, it's been horrible.
Oh yeah,
you would think, but no, it's been so bad. I've had a modem replaced already, and then just keeps cutting off. I don't know why they don't want me to work. I mean, I get it.
And Rafa Canseco, say hello from Mexico. Thanks for joining
hola.
us. Yeah, Ali, you were saying, or did you say you're from Mexico? I think you said it before.
I am. I'm
yeah,
from Mexico.
so I missed.
Yeah. Best country in the world.
Actually, I went to Mexico 3 or 4 times. In don't bear with me, I'm gonna say it wrong. Guadalajara.
Okay. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And Mexico
Pretty
City. Yeah, I had a great
Amazing.
time, and it's been
I
forever.
love Mexico City. Yeah.
I need to go back. It's been forever. So Mike Sisu seems good. Hey, thanks for everyone. I love those kind of like live stream where like it's comments from people. Either you just say hi, or you can ask any questions. So that's a show for that. We talk about DevRel. We're gonna have the second part. We're gonna have a demo. So if you have any question for Ali, she's our guest today about developer relation, about what she does. She will answer when it's possible. So tell me, Ali, I'm curious because developer advocate, it's an interesting job because we all have the same title-ish, but the job can be different from one company to the other, and like it can even be different from like inside the same company depending on like which department or which project you focus on. So can you tell me a little more about like what's your day-to-day? I know there is no real day-to-day with DevRel, but like what it looks like what are you doing at Testkube right now?
Yeah, sure. So like you say, it varies a lot across companies, but as well as across projects. So it depends a lot on at what stage your product is, right? Right now, for Testkube in particular, I am in charge, or more so a day-to-day, right? I have a few meetings every day, usually with product or usually with engineering, to kind of align on where we're at product-wise. So maybe discuss what new features are coming, what new features are already there that I need to promote, that I need to talk about, that we need documentation for. So it's usually a meeting or a couple of meetings with product, engineering, or about documentation, because I also participate in improving our documentation. And then it's usually I work in sprints, so 2-week sprints, and it can be it includes anything from product launches where I not host, like orchestrate what we're going to do for every release, right? If we're going to do a live stream, if we're going to do documentation, if we're going to do blog posts, if we're going to do learn pages, if we're going to do additions to our website to include these new features or product launches that we're talking about. If we're doing any community outreach, of course, communicating that with our current users, like, hey, send out a marketing email, or sending out communication via Discord and our newsletter. So it's a lot of things. So that's usually one part of the sprint. So it's usually, covering product-based launches. And then also on the side of that, I also handle content creation. So that can be based. So at Testkube, we have a testing handbook. So Testkube, first of all, I didn't even introduce the products, but Testkube is a testing framework for apps in Kubernetes. So specifically for apps in Kubernetes, that's why I'm repping. Where is it? I'm repping Kubernetes swag right now. And woo. And so we have a testing handbook that I also own, which is pretty much just an introduction for people to learn about testing in Kubernetes specifically. So I cover anything from how to do parallel testing, how to do asynchronous testing, how to do testing with a specific tool, for example, how to do testing with JMeter, how to do testing with Ginkgo, K6, yada, 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 or how to do it for a specific language or framework. So let's say that you want to do just Go tests. So I make content around that. And I usually base those bi-weekly. So every sprint, I have a new topic that I have to produce content for. And every time it's a video, a blog post, office hours, which is a live stream with our community, newsletter, not a newsletter, email communications with the community, and then putting it out, promoting it via social media and all of that. That usually is bi-weekly. Then I also have sprints for documentation. So every sprint, I have a task to improve something from documentation. And that can be anything, that's where I do a little bit of front-end coding, because we handle, our docs, which you can visit at docs.testkube.io and check it out. But usually it's that. Those are my main tasks. So it's product-based launches, documentation, and handbook content. Those are pretty much my three main tasks that I drive every sprint. And then you can sprinkle in everything else that's, the basics of community management, where if there's a new user with an issue, so I'm not tech support. We have our engineers to help with those kind of things, but I do some follow-up with every user that has an issue on our product or a feature request. And after they've been solved by an engineer or our product manager, I usually address, how did that go, get some feedback on their process setting Testkube up and things like that. So, but that's mostly something that happens on the day-to-day and not like a mandatory task that I follow like the other three that I just own. But that's pretty much my sprint, which is a lot of context switching.
Let's just remember that a sprint is like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks. So we can talk later about how I do the management of each task, because I know it's a lot, and it sounds like, I don't want you to think that every day I'm doing, a little bit here and a little bit there. Sometimes when there's a deadline, you have to, but but ideally I have to manage it very well, align or assign specific days to specific things, or else I'll go crazy, because there's just a lot of things to target.
I know, that's a lot of things. And I love your description, because usually when I ask that to people, or even when people ask me that, like, I'm gonna tell them like the eye level things I do, and that's gonna be like I don't know, 30 seconds, because I'm gonna go super quick to each point. But like, you did the whole speech, and that was interesting. But secondly, you probably even forgot stuff that you're doing. So it's just like, that was a good example to show people that like a developer advocate job, like, we do a lot of things. And I'm not saying that like other people in other jobs do nothing, but the nice thing, and at the same time the problem or the things that can be a little less nice with a developer advocate job, is that we touch base on many part of the business. Like you said it, like, you write blog posts, you write newsletter or email, you work with the community, you do social media, you write video, you do live stream, and like, you write code example, you write the docs, you write tutorials. Like we touch a lot of expertise. We do a lot of things that I still feel, after doing that for years, that are still important and critical for a company to be successful. But sometimes it's not easy to manage. And we have a question related to that. from Santiago, who said, Hallie, I know you have 2 jobs. This is what you said at the beginning. I wanted to know how you organize your time. So how many hours do you work? And by the way, big congrats. I'm your fan. So
Thank you.
that's great.
Yeah, so something I didn't mention when introducing myself is on the side, I have a part-time job where I am a web developer as well. So that usually depends a lot on the project, but I don't always have a heavy load, you know? So sometimes I can space out my part-time projects, which are making websites for nonprofits, so I can space that out with my full-time job. But obviously my full-time job at Testkube is the priority, right? And what I do to manage my time is I start very early, usually very early. And then I also schedule things like eating and going to the gym, because otherwise I would be sitting in front of my computer all day, which is not ideal. Then I always try and finish before 5 or 6. That's like a mandatory thing where I had to set this boundary, because I'm telling you, as much as I, am pro taking care of your time and taking care of yourself, I I used to be a workaholic. So I'm like a retired workaholic where I just get obsessed with things, and I'm like, I enjoy my job. That's the truth of it. I like what I do. So it's
Yeah.
easy to get absorbed in it and just forget everything else, but that's not healthy or, sustainable in the long run. So it took me a lot of trial and error to really get it down to, okay, you have to set boundaries to yourself. And also at your work, like I turn off notifications from Slack. I just completely turn off my computer sometimes, or,
That's
things
good advice.
like that really work for me. Another thing I use is I cross. So I have 3 calendars that I have to manage. So it's my full-time job, then my part-time job, and then my content creation. Because recently I started also making money from there. So it's another side hustle. It's a job, it turned out to be a job. So I use Cron. I think that's how you pronounce it, but it pretty much like combines your 3 calendars. So that also helps a lot, little things like that. Just, I stopped multitasking as well. So I try and do, really finish a task before I move on to the next thing, and not mixing things. That helps a lot in actually pushing through.
Which is not easy when you're a DevRel person, because we rarely spend too much time on one task, because like we have like all those things to do together.
Yeah. And speaking more of like specifically on the tasks that are DevRel that I have to cover, content creation that I have to do, also, a little bit of coding for the product or documentation, things like that. I usually book entire days. So actually my Wednesdays, today was not it, because I had a lot of meetings. I was talking to Fred before that sometimes you just can't help it, right? You'll have days where everything is smooth and your routine goes amazing, but other days are, you have to put in a little extra work, which, I mean, it's only valid if you want to really tackle everything like me. You don't have to be like me that I have 2 jobs, right? But
No.
In my case, for example, I book out entire days in my calendar so that I don't get meetings. So Wednesdays usually are my content creation days, where I record, where I make blog posts, and it's just focused work to push through. And then I work about 1 or 2 weeks in advance. So then that gives me the rest of the days to do other things, do community. I also block out when I have to talk to users through Discord. And even though it's a thing that you should be monitoring like every now and then, it's easy to get caught up on everything else. So I'm really strict about my calendar. That's the main tip I can give you. Just be very strict about it. If you're really bad about even remembering when to eat, even book that. Just get reminders. That really works for me. And so that's how I do it.
And even if it's not about remembering to like eating, it's just like putting this is a hard day. That was a long day for me too. Putting it in your calendar prevents other people to put meeting during the time that you should probably take a break and eat. So I learned that a long time ago. And booking time in your calendar too. Like I used to have like the no meeting Friday, and you need to work in collaboration with your colleagues about that. But like that gave me a day where I know I had no meeting and I could focus on whatever I need to focus on that week. So I thought was organized, but now listening to you, I'm like, oh shit, I have some work to do. Some work to do. We have another question. I love that. You know what, that really makes me happy because we started on for my job at Cube First. We started a live stream. Actually, the founder John and Jared were doing live stream once in a while before I joined, and when I joined, they were like, "Hey, we would really like to have those every other weeks." So we're doing this since I joined the team, like for 2 months, every other weeks. And recently, we're starting to have more and more people coming live and asking questions, and we are having discussion with people, even if they're not in the video, because we have guests, because we show new technology and stuff like that. And I really liked it, and I was hoping that at some point the DevRel show would be like that, but like so far after 2 episodes, there's already great questions or comments from people.
Nice.
So this is perfect because I can easily talk for 2 hours with any guest, especially when there's someone like you or Chris that have like a lot of interesting things to do. But I really feel like it brings even more values when it's coming from questions from the people in the community. So we have a question from Yagi here. I am a software engineer with 5 years of experience looking to move jobs. So hopefully people cannot recognize you, Yagi, unless you already told your previous job. But any tips on preparing for interview? So lead code, system design. I assume with your last part that you're specifically thinking about like technical question or technical test, but I would assume we can answer any tips for preparing for interviews for software engineering. So do you have any tips, Alejandra?
Yeah. Lead code. I mean, it depends. Not every company nowadays is asking you for lead code style questions in the interviews, but it's always great to brush up on those if that's a company that you want to target. Also, well, you have 5 years of experience, so definitely system design questions. That's a must. And I would say networking. So usually, I mean, you said specifically for interviews, and you might not have that much trouble because you already have experience, but networking will get you in so much easily. And if you have a portfolio or projects to show, then that's also amazing. It just can make the process much, much smoother. But I would say you got it down. Lead code, system design, just brush up on everything and fundamentals, because a lot of interviews are also, just theoretical, not necessarily practical. And then just be yourself. That's important.
Yeah, unless you're like me, don't be yourself too much. That can cause you problem in interviews. But yeah, no, those were all tips that I usually give to people who look to change job. Like I did an interview for a software developer job for 15 years now because I've been doing DevRel for 12 years. So there's still a technical part. I have a little something against like doing like live code and interviews because it's like it does not always represent reality. Oh, I think my cat just left. He's done with like coding interview too. He just left the room. I don't know if you see him, but anyway. So still it's important. Also think about not just like on the technical side of things. I would say think also about on the impact that you had at the company, because usually your future manager is going to want to know like what kind of impact, what kind of personality you can bring, if on the personality level you will fit within the team. But also again, it's always about impact. So what type of impact, what can you bring more to the team than the other person who has also 5 years of experience, who know the same programming language or like libraries or whatever you're using or you're going to need for that job. So what is the things you can bring more to the table? And Hallie touched a really good point. Like if you have some kind of portfolio, it doesn't need to be something formal. It can be just like code on GitHub. It can be like just writing a blog post about your journey of learning a new programming language, or just the things you learned that you can share with other people. That's really a great way. Sorry, my cat was like starting to put everything on the floor. You just want to join in now. So yeah, it's a good way to show people that you have the experience, or at least to show people how you're thinking. Because if you're lucky, in the last couple of years, you may have worked on open source projects. You have something that you can show. But like if it was closed source, you may not be able to show what you worked on. And it can put you at the disadvantage. So if you have something public, Even if you're like just like when I say to, but you have 5 years of experience, so it's a little bit different. But when I talk to someone who wants to start in tech, I told them like even when you do exercise for school or for your online courses, like put your exercise code on GitHub. Yeah, they may seem simple, or they may seem even like it's too simple. I'm just learning, but it will still show like how you code. You can still explain the way you think about like solving issues, and that's really gonna put you in an advantage compared to other people who don't have anything to show for the next job. And by the way, now we're lucky enough to have Ali on the show to answer those questions. But like, if you're looking to change job, or you're looking to start in tech or start in DevRel, and or you don't want to ask question live, I'm offering free coffee chat with anybody. It's 30 minutes talk with someone. So you just schedule that, and we have a 30 minutes chat about everything or anything you want to talk about. It's just fun for me to hopefully give back to other people. And you know what? I don't have the only truth. So I may share advice. You take what makes sense, you leave what you think is shitty, and we're just going to have a great time chatting together. So we have Rafa. Let's start with Rafa. He said, by the way, we missed the Pika Codes videos. So what are the Pika Codes videos?
I don't know, because I post like every day almost.
Yeah, but
I post on Instagram. I post on Instagram, TikTok, Pika Codes, short videos, maybe long videos as you miss. I used to do long videos for about a month or two, but then since I was traveling a lot, I stopped. But maybe I'll get back to it. I'm just doing way too many things, guys.
Or maybe once a day is not enough. Maybe you should publish like 2 or 3 videos per day.
Yeah, maybe I should stream my entire day, right? Like, see me go crazy.
So Rafa has a question. He has a question also. So I have a question. Let's start on a good note. I have a question. I want to start a YouTube channel, but I don't know if I should start in Spanish, which is his main language, or English. I'm good at English. Or have 2 channels. What do you recommend, Hallie? So I'm not answering this one because that was directed only to you.
Yeah, it's mine. Okay, stay away. I actually had this dilemma as well because, well, my native tongue is Spanish, but I'm good at English. And I went with English mainly because I already had an audience that was, from everywhere. So I was like, okay, I'm going to target the people that follow me, which are just from around the world, right? They're not specifically just English speakers, but they may be from another country and also speak English, which I think was great. But I do think that we need more content in Spanish. It kind of made me feel a little bad when I already started, sharing content in English, and I was getting a little big with my content in English. And then I know that there's a need for content in Spanish. So that's entirely your call. But if you want to do Spanish, there's a huge audience for that. And there's a lack of content in Spanish where I think that we need more. What I'm doing right now is alternating between posting a video in Spanish, posting a video in English, or if I post in Spanish, add English Spanish subtitles, and vice versa. And that usually seems to be working well. That's another option as well. If you want to put in the work, a little bit of work of adding subtitles, that can pay off as well. But definitely would be good to just go with your gut.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I was just gonna say that there's a lot of market for demand for both languages, but I think there's definitely way less competition. Well, not competition if you wanna, get a huge following. If that's your goal, then you can definitely start in Spanish, I would say. And give back to the Spanish-speaking community, which really needs more content.
I think Rafa, I'm still gonna answer this.
Can't touch this.
No. So I had the same dilemma, not Spanish, because French is my first language, and just sharing my thinking about it, which is like a little bit what Ali said. I mean, like there is a need in other languages than English because most company will create content in English, and everyone's creating content in English, which means that like there's an opportunity to have like a more niche market, even if it was a case for French speaking. Spanish is way more popular as a language, so you can still reach a lot of people. I decided in my case to start to do it in English first because my English was okay, but really not good. So that gave me a choice, like that gave me a way to practice, especially because I was thinking about like blog content at that time, but gave me a way to practice my writing English. And when I started to make videos, it gave me another chance to practice my speaking English. And in my case, because it was French, English was like a way to reach like way more people. So, but again, there's benefits to do in both languages. So great question. Obviously, if you want to do both, it's a little bit more work, but that can be worded as that. So yeah, great question. And we have Lydia de la Cruz who said, I don't know. I consider myself bilingual, speaking English for the last 11 years. I learned because of my first job in DevRel. Like Microsoft gave me a chance, and they were looking for someone bilingual, and was like, I'm not. Like I speak French, babble in English, and they gave me a chance. So now I consider myself
You're really
bilingual.
good now. Yeah.
But when I'm really tired, and I think it's the case right now, I slip French word in my English sentences. Like it just happened right now. So like bear with me. I may insert French word today because I'm a bit tired. But Lydia said, any tips on how to craft your resume from SWE to developer advocate? That's a good question.
That's actually what I did. So my advice is start sharing. Another misconception is that to be DevRel, you need to have a huge following, or you need to have followers even. As DevRel, what you really need to be able to is break down difficult topics into digestible information in little chunks and pieces. So if you have a blog post and if you're the only reader, that doesn't matter. Okay. That's amazing for a company to see how you actually break down a topic, how you walk people through a tutorial, things like that, even a video. It doesn't matter if you have 0 readers. Trust me, just do it. It also helps you, obviously learn things even better, concepts. So that I always give that advice to write, because you'll be doing a lot of that when you're DevRel. And doing that, also talk about how, for example, in my case, I tried to lead a lot of community initiatives at my company as a software engineer. So I had to do a lot of with onboarding and improving the onboarding process for newcomers. And that meant also working on the internal documentation, right? Like onboarding documentation. That was also a little bullet point that I added to my resume. Like, I helped improve onboarding documentation for new hires. Then I also talked about taking part in the interview process, creating content, just writing blog posts, sharing with the community, talk about how you enjoy learning new things and tinkering around with different technologies. If you don't have a portfolio of content yet to share, those are skills that are very valuable as a developer advocate, and being a team player as well.
Yeah, no, good answer. And I know it was specifically for woman in tech, but I would say like everything you've done in previous job, even if it was not as a software engineer, you can show some of the impact you have that can be related to developer relation, because that's a really human-centric job. That's a job about creating content, sharing content. So like there's always bits of like what you've done before that you can bring to show value to a potential employer for a developer advocate job. And second question from Lydia, how can I showcase my personal brand on my resume? I have a link to my socials, but don't think that is enough.
The way I do it, that could be, I could actually share that. I have no problem sharing my resume, for example, but in my resume, I cover my professional experience first, and then I talk about personal projects. And in my personal projects, I talk about my part-time job, which is, being a web developer. And then I also talk about my content creation, where I dive deeper into the things that I do. For example, there's a bullet point for creating content on front-end technologies for a community for the tech community or something like that. And then I share the links there, and I talk about if I do content, on social media. It can be just social media, like you have your social links. It could be, for example, I do Instagram, I do TikTok even. So that's useful as well. I have a Medium blog as well. I also used to use Hashnode, so I have links to that. But I mentioned it as a personal project in my resume, which is, it's valid. It's something that you are putting time in, and it's actually, it is a project. It is a personal project. So nice hobby to have. And I think that's how you can do it. And also at the beginning, I share as my portfolio. It includes my socials as well.
And the thing is that, oh, by the way, speaking of that, I published a book at A Press a couple of years ago, which was really about personal branding. So funny enough, I don't even remember the title because it's long like that. I didn't choose it, but like it starts with success in programming. It was published at A Press, and it's personal branding for developers. So there are some examples that are out of date because it was published maybe 8 years ago, and I never did a second edition, but that could be helpful. I'm pretty sure it's kind of like free right now because it's a whole book, or really, really cheap. And if you want to see, like on my resume, what I do is that you can check my resume is there. There's a PDF, like I use Markdown and I generate a PDF with it, but you can see there is the latest version ish of in a PDF. And at the top of my resume, even before talking about my experience or school or whatever, I have a kind of like, those are the too long didn't read about me. And this is where I share things about, and your example may be different, but since I'm like when I look for a job, I'm looking for a developer advocate job, I have like 4 lines about, been in tech for that many years, like been in tech for more than 20 years, 10 years as a software developer, 10 years as a developer advocate. I should probably update that. Seasoned public speaker, spoke at like 180 conferences in like 20-something countries in the world, published a book. And I highlight also things that I feel are part of my brand, like has a passion or things that I'm looking for in a job. So I say like has a passion for public speaking, creating entertaining educational videos, and growing community. So those are like the 3, actually, did I count well? Like 3-ish things that I really like to do in a job, things that I think I can bring value to people, and what I think other companies should look for when they look for a developer advocate. And also I have a last bullet point, which is like love to learn new programming languages, technology, or product, because in DevRel, like your product is the product of your employer, and that can be like SDK, that can be like a product in itself, but it's always like a new programming language or a new framework. And no matter how long you've been working in tech, there's always like something new that you do not know. So you really need to like learning new things in that job. So it doesn't mean that like it's a good resume. It's only 1 page, even if I have 20 years. So I really strip it down. It's really a resume. It's not a CV. And you know what? I put less information on all my jobs. I put stuff about the impact I had, but I really focus on like, hey, if after reading the first 5 lines at the top, you're not convinced I'm the good person, it's not about reading about my experience that you're gonna start to like really think that I'm the right person for the fit. So that's how I kind of like showcase my experience as a big picture, and also my personal brand, like what I think it resonate when you know me, when you saw me, or like when I do online. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. So not sure if Lydia, you were asking for Ali or mine, but mine, I just shared the link, or you just go on github.com/developer/resume. And Hallie, I don't know if it's something you want to share or if they can just contact you.
For mine, I think my DMs are closed though on Twitter. So if you can mention me publicly so I can follow you, and then you can send me a DM. Awesome. And I would happily share it with you, but just mention me publicly.
Yeah, I know. She blocked her DM. That kind of person, you know. Yeah, but I'm saying that I'm joking because at first I know you and you're really not like that, and I cannot imagine how it is to have like that many followers and that many people like trying to contact you, especially when you're a woman in tech. Unfortunately, that may
Yeah.
always not always be a nice thing to be. So Lydia said thank you, and Marek. Hey Marek, it's been forever. I didn't see you, man. So Marek is asking, hi Fred and Alejandra. Did I say your name correctly when I said that? Because you're always laughing. So I'm like, I either like it's good and she's just surprised, or it's really really bad.
No, it's good. It just sounds funny because you changed like the accent. It's like, hi Fred and Alejandra. It's like
I know. I'm
sounds
trying. I'm
very
trying.
sounds
I'm really
like
trying.
Spaniard. No, it's great. You nail
Yeah,
it
because I
actually.
spend a year like it's why I always say like call me Fred when people ask me like how do you pronounce your name, because Frederic is really hard
Yeah.
to say for an
Fred.
anglophone. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Fred is easier, but people, because they call me like Frederic, and they
Yeah.
try too much. So like I know I kind of like do the same thing with people, but I always try to be respectful with it. Anyway, I talk too much. So Marek was asking, do you think it's easier to make a career move from software engineer to developer relation, or from developer relation to software engineer? I have an answer, but Ali, if you're the guest, so
Yeah,
please.
my answer, my personal opinion is that it's harder to go from software engineer to DevRel. And that's because usually as a DevRel, I mean, that's been the case for me and for other DevRels I know, you already have a background in software engineering. So it's easy to, showcase also, as long as you brush on stuff, right? It's easy to go, what's the word? Two bilinguals in a live stream, it's trouble. Um what's the word? It's easy to have your skills like grow old if you're not working on them as a coder. So it will take some period for you to adjust, I guess, to kind of like go back to job hunting from DevRel to software engineering. And but it's feasible because you'll already have that knowledge, right? And you're been working, especially me, for example, talking about my situation specifically. I work under agile. I do sprint based weeks, right? I also do I have tickets. I have, I do code. I do stay up to date with all of these trends that I could very easily just switch into software engineering if I wanted to. Whereas I think that as a software engineer, you need to develop soft skills to be DevRel, and you need to have this huge chunk of, DevRel. Usually, a lot of people say, oh, it's so easy to be DevRel, or it's not a real job, where it's like you don't know how to code. It's just people that don't know how to code. But in reality, I think it's something that's very important for you to be good in technology to be a DevRel. So I think you have to actually nail these two things. You have to be personable, and you have to be able to break down things, and also be a good technologist. So I think it's harder to go from software engineering to DevRel, but that's my opinion, my spicy opinion.
No, but you know what? I agree with what you said, but I was going
Yeah.
the other way around.
Oh, okay.
For part of what you said, and it's coming really from a cynical point of view. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm doing developer relations for a long time. I love the job, but I've seen the worst of that job and that like part of the industry. And the thing is that like there's a lot of jobs where uh, they're still going to need technical people. It's a developer advocate, but there is still job where like even if you are a developer advocate, your product may be targeted toward developer, but may not require you to like do a lot of technical things. So if you do that a long time, I know I still consider myself a software developer. I still code, but I know I'm not as good as I was 10 years ago when I was a full-time software developer. I lost it a little bit. So I'm still technical. I can talk with a lot of people. I can code, but I'm not as good as I was. So maybe it's just a me problem. But the other part that is a little more cynical is that first you were talking about that like people that have a lot of followers and like and I know it's really not your case, you're technical, but like there is a lot of company that hire developer advocate based on their following, so they don't really have like the technical skills. But on top of that, often what I've seen is that people do not understand that much developer relation, or even when they do, they feel like everybody can do that job because it's a little bit of writing. Like everybody know how to write email, and it's a little bit of
Yeah.
like doing videos, and now everybody put like videos and pictures on Instagram. Oh, it's a little bit of like community management. Like everybody have friends, like they can talk to people. And I know it's bullshit, like everything I just said. Like it's not because you have those things that you can be a good developer advocate. But I've seen many software developer goes from like, hey, they're such a good developer, they're going to be amazing developer advocate, but they don't have what you said. Like they don't have like the personality for it, they don't have the communication skill for it, they don't have like some of the skills that may be a little bit difficult, which basically right now I'm proving your point. But it means that like, oh God, I don't even know where I was going with that. But I was just like, oh my God, I was getting myself like excited about my answer.
Yeah.
And I just lost my feed of thoughts. But yeah, I guess if I want to go back to that, I feel it's easier. Okay, no, I know it. I get it back. ADHD brain, sorry about that. But like, I feel it's easier to find a DevRel job because most people hiring for DevRel think that everybody can do the job. So if you may have the skills, but you may not have it, but you're a good software developer, so hey, we should hire you. I see a lot of developer advocate job that they ask only software engineers experience, even for like quote unquote senior developer advocate jobs, when the other way around is a little more difficult because if you doing DevRel for a long time, it may be a little bit harder to prove also your skills. And there's also an issue with hiring software developer. Like sometimes company, they will really focus on like, do you know the technology we're using, instead of focusing on like, is the person know how to code? So if I want to apply for a job with, I don't know, let's say a job for a Rust developer, I can learn Rust, like, but I don't know Rust. So I may not even be considered for that job because I don't have that Rust experience and because I didn't code full time the last time. So anyway, I'm blabbering about that. I think both have their pros and cons, their challenges or not. I feel like in one, I guess my point is that I feel like you have maybe a little less to prove from going from software engineers to developer relation role than going from developer relation role to software engineers. But again, that's my point of view on things. I may be totally wrong on that, and I also agree with what you said. So I guess that's kind of it.
It depends.
By the way, if there's developer advocates looking, watching the show right now, if you want to be on the show, 2023 schedule is full, and now I starting to book guests from March 2024. But like, there's a big chunk of the next year. Yeah, it's going better than I thought. At the beginning, I was like, there's a lot of developer advocate, but like, I don't know, people wants to come on the show, and it seems like it's the case. But still, there's
We
a
all
lot
love
of like
talking.
opportunities. I think it's, that's part of the job. Like we talk and we're getting paid to talk. I always said like it's the perfect job for me. Like getting paid to talk is like,
I know,
damn,
right?
I do this for free. Like I get on the nerves of everybody because I talk too much. And now I'm getting paid to do that.
This is gonna cost you. It's an hour already, so it's gonna cost you.
I know. You tell me after how much you're gonna charge me for that. But
I'll send you the invoice. Yeah.
Yeah, I may be a little bit afraid of that because you share about your social media.
Oh yeah,
like
my rates are up.
I know. So we had a lot of great questions. I had some of my question of my own, but we already been talking for like nearly an hour. So because I don't want to be charged too much from Hallie being on my show, let's move to the second part of the show where we're gonna like Allie's gonna demo us her technology of choice from her employer. So we're gonna learn a little more about testing, which doesn't sound exciting, let's be honest. But no. Bear with me. Doesn't sound exciting, but I've done another live stream with Ali not too long ago. This one was for Cube First, which I thank. By the way, yes, they're my employer, but they're also a sponsor on the show. And yeah, so I did a show with Ali, and we finished the show, and I was like, damn, I didn't know testing could be interesting. So this is Ali Vibe. Oh my God, Ali Vibe is her energy, but also the product is quite interesting. And I'm not saying that because we work at the same company, I do not care about their project. I just care about mine. That's a joke. So, Ali, the mic is yours. Tell us a little more about Testkube.
Okay, well, like I told you, Testkube is a Kubernetes testing framework that it helps you orchestrate your tests. Oops, you didn't see that. That was probably my internet. But anyways, so the reason why, talking a little bit about what Fred said about testing being boring, I'm going to talk to you about why I decided to work on this product to begin with, right? So when I was a software engineer, I would go back to the olden days when I was a software engineer.
The older
I was,
days.
huh?
The
Yeah.
older days.
Yeah, when I was
It's
young
been
and
so
naive.
long, so
When
long.
I was young and naive, just a baby, and I was working as a software engineer, I worked at this big company where they one day decided that they wanted to use Kubernetes, right? And the company was like, we don't even know what Kubernetes is. Who cares? We're just going to use it because it's trendy and everybody's talking about it. So, so we switched to Kubernetes. It was actually useful for us because we were a big company. But anyways, what happened to us that we were doing software engineering with our QAs as well and our teams was that we had to obviously migrate everything, and we didn't know anything about Kubernetes. If our company didn't know that, and we had like one DevOps person, we didn't know about it at all. So what happened is that once our services were now in the cloud, we also had to do all our testing in the cloud, but there was not a system in place for us to do that. So it was really hard to, for example, I worked with Java before as a software engineer. And what we had to do is, me as a coder, I would run my simple tests and then have something broken, and I would have to navigate through the terminal, through pods to find, a simple file, a report file, or the logs for whatever was going wrong with my test. So that was like a hassle in its own. It was a lot of bottlenecks. It was a lot of issues that I didn't necessarily have to deal with because why, right? I was just a coder. So that is one thing that I found out Testkube did easily for people, which is, you pretty much install it in your cluster, in your Kubernetes cluster, and then it does all that heavy lifting for you so that testers and developers can just focus on coding and testing, which is what they're supposed to do. So you don't need to know what Kubernetes is. You don't need to know what it does. You don't need to know how to handle it. All you need to do is have it installed in your cluster, which can be done by a platform engineer, a DevOps engineer, whoever's in charge of operations, and then you're good to go. So pretty much when you have that installed, you will get a dashboard just like this, and then you're ready to test. So normally and ideally in your company, you will have your repositories or your projects living in GitHub, GitLab, whatever you use, Bitbucket internally, right? And what Testkube does is it grabs those files from your project. So you just tell it, okay, this is my project. Go and find all the testing files I have there. For example, if you're a front-end developer and you use Cypress to test your web application from end to end, or if you use, I don't know, JMeter if you're working with Java and whatnot. So let's say that you give that to Testkube, and then Testkube just grabs those files from you that are living inside your pod, your cluster, and then you can just execute them. And the cool thing about it is that you get this pretty dashboard that's also very user friendly. And I'm going to show you just how you would do it. Okay. So let's say that you want to add, ideally, you want to have this for your testers, right? So what would happen if you didn't have Testkube? Let's talk a little bit about how you would set up a test, for example. So ideally, if let's say that you want to test an API for your application, but obviously it's protected, for a reason. It's private company code. It's private, it's just meant to be private. But if you want to expose it to test against it when it's in your cluster, you have to either use an ingress controller or just expose it entirely, which is not a good idea. All right. You want everything to live within your cluster, and you want to test within it without having to expose anything. And that's exactly what happens. So you just add in a test, and let's say that I want to create, can you see that? Yeah. So let's say that I want to create a K6 test. K6 is a popular load testing tool. So we're just going to run like a smoke test to see if our app is up and running. So let's say that we create what's funny.
Sorry, yeah, I was because when I said yes, my cat looked at me. He is sleeping on my desk, and he thought I was talking to him, and he just like made like a cute little position, and like, oh my
Oh,
god, I received so much love. So now I feel bad because I was not talking to him. But yes, I love you, Tails.
they're paying attention to my test creation process.
Yeah, it wants to learn. It wants to become a QA.
Yeah, Tails, you want to become a tester in the DevOps world? Okay, so all you have to do is, you create a test, you assign a name to it, you tell it what type of test it is, and look, we also support like natively Testkube supports a bunch of testing tools that are very popular, or if you use a different one that we don't support, you can also just import it and use it. Excellent. And then what you do is you say the source. So for example, it can be a file if you just want to upload it. The string of the script, for example, K6 are scripts, but we're going to tell it that it lives in our GitHub repository. So you paste your GitHub repository, and I'm going to use our Testkube one. And then this is of course, if it's private, this one's open source. This is for our open source repository, so you can go check that out. Then you tell it which main it's in, a branch it is. Sorry, it's in the main branch, and then you tell it what path to go to. Where you tell it this is where you'll find the test files. Go look for them, Testkube. Do your job, and then you create it, and there you have your test. And all your tester or you as a developer have to do is run the test, and then you can see over here how this is done. So inside your cluster, these tests are defined as CRDs, custom resource definitions for Kubernetes. And then this is it. We just tell it, where everything is, where to grab it, and what type of test it is. And the executor, which is the type of test, is basically a Docker image. So that's why it's deployable. You can run it whenever. Then you can, or it already ran and it was successful because we're just checking. Because we're just really checking that our application is up and running, right? So you get the logs immediately. Like if you see it live, let's say that we want to run it, and you see the logs live. There's no more going through pods, which was what I was telling you, just to find the logs. You can actually see them in real time. You can get everything you need right there from a very user-friendly dashboard, which is amazing for a tester or a developer. Yay! So there you go. Ran successfully. You can also do that from your terminal. There's a lot of cool features. For example, if you want to set up webhooks to get Slack notifications, to make a Grafana dashboard, to just get notified on the status of your tests. If you're scheduling these, for example, you can schedule it to, if it's a smoke test, for example, you probably want that running every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. And you can schedule that to run every 30 minutes, every 5 minutes, a custom amount of time, and have it running just periodically to check the status of your application. If it's up, if your servers are up or down, get alerts on that. You can also create test suites to run tests in parallel. I'm going to show you how this is defined, for example. So you can also say, okay, every time I deploy a change to my application, every time I deploy my application again, I want to test if it went well. So I'm going to run a bunch of different types of tests and see that everything is working fine. So you can also trigger that based on Kubernetes events, based on changes in your code. If you want to connect it to your CI/CD line and use it, as triggers to just work with your process instead of having it be a bottleneck as it is without Testkube. And this is pretty much why I decided to work on this project, because it would have solved something that I, as a developer, had, a problem that I had as a developer. And that's pretty much, it does so many things. It's honestly so cool. Our team is amazing. It's such an honor to, be able to talk about this often and kind of educate people and make them see that testing doesn't have to be boring. It can be really fun, dynamic, and pretty like this. Look at this.
Yeah, that is the thing. I said it in the other live stream.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. I love the UI, and I'm a CLI person, and I love like testing, especially when you have like a test process like that, when you have different step. it's just nice to have like a visual, like a good view like that, so you can really understand. So no,
Yeah.
the team really did a great job with the UI, and I know you would like to have a light mode, but I'm still really happy with the dark mode.
Yeah, I mean, as an option, but it's good. It's easy on the eyes as it is, but it's so pretty. It's great. This is a new, actually, we just released this yesterday. It's status pages. Now you can actually build status pages around your test. So like I was talking about, if you're running, for example, a smoke test or a CRL test where you're just trying to fetch your web app, and you're trying to see that it's up, as a service, you can use that to tell people and actually expose your status page, so you can tell people if your website is up, if there's any services that are down, if there should be any delays. It's really, really cool because it really puts everything together and it all comes full circle, and you can have this amazing communication with your users as well, offering, quality at all times and making sure that your systems are up and running as they should. But it's pretty cool. I really like it.
It is cool, and you know what I was always saying, what I always say when we talk about testing is that like it's important, but like it's often something that developers don't do, myself included, or don't like to do. When you
Yeah.
do it, like you're not like, oh my god, this is not the most exciting thing, but like when you have tools like that that make it easier for you to do the
Mhm.
testing, it's like it's important to deliver like great like quality software, and
Yeah.
tool like Testkube make it easier for you and more fun. Like seriously, so yeah, no, good job on the team. Great
Shout
demo
out.
also to get to know a little more the project. So yeah, folks, you can try it. Go on testkube.io or cloud.testkube.io.
Yeah.
It's also on GitHub, also, so you can go on GitHub and find the
We join our
information there.
Discord, talk to us, go on the documentation. We have a live demo as well, demo.testkube.io, where you can just play around with. It's like a sandbox environment where you can just play around and create some tests, just see how it works, navigate it without, without having to have your local cluster yet connected. But it's a great tool.
That's great. I think it's a common thing at Cube Shop, the company englobing the R2 project, is that like we tackle the complexity for people, and we
Mhm.
deliver like a software that is easy to use and
Yeah.
like fun to use. So, and I think Testkube doing that, just that also.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, no, thanks for the demo. Thanks for taking the time to discuss DevRel and a lot of like other things with me.
Yeah.
I think it was just great. Let me thanks again my employer that gave me the opportunity to do that on my work time. So thanks you first. I appreciate that. And so any last word, last wisdom that you want to share with the rest of the world?
That's
That's the question. Huh? Needs to be the
that's a
right
tough
stuff.
one. That's a tough one. No, I guess if you are interested in DevRel, it's a really cool job. It keeps things interesting. You're tinkering around with a lot of things. You're playing around with a lot of things, which is amazing. And it's one of the reasons why I love it. So my advice, it stays the same. Like if you were interested in DevRel, start sharing, start talking about things, sell yourself and practice those teaching skills, those teaching muscles, because those are very valuable. But if you think that DevRel is for you, then go for it. It's really fun. And feel free to ask me anything and reach out to me on Twitter if you'd like. I'm mostly responsive on Twitter. My DMs get lost. So just mention me and I'll try my best to respond and get back to you.
I know. I even have to message Hallie on her company Slack to tell her, like, hey, you know what? I tweet about the show. Like, would be nice for you to retweet about it because you're a guest. So, like, she is that busy and getting that number of messages.
No, that's mostly me being bad with replying, but not me being busy.
I'm teasing you. And just to add to your advice, that was pretty good. Like don't be afraid to share things, even if they exist already, because everything exists on the internet. But
Oh
like,
yeah.
you're gonna have your special sauce to it, your special like way of doing things, like how you're
Yeah.
thinking about it. And you know what? Even if like it's exactly ish the same content that someone posts,
Don't copy
there's
though.
still no. I mean, yeah, not in that sense. Like, don't copy
Yeah.
what other people think. But like if your vision about something is the same as someone else, or the example you're sharing looks like someone else, I mean, like maybe the person is going to end up on your blog or on your YouTube channel may not have seen the other one. So it's how it's a lot easier. It's how it's a lot easier for developers in the last couple of years, because there is plenty of content. There's plenty of bad content, but there's still plenty of content. I remember when I started. Now I'm gonna feel super old, but like when I started as a developer, it was books, or some company, like big company, had forums, but like we didn't have that much content online to help us as a developer. Stack Overflow was not a thing. So we basically had to rely on like more senior people in our team, or books, and some forums. Like I remember I spent so much time in my first programming language, which is Java. I spent so much time on the Java forum, but I was lucky because it was Sun at that time, and like the invest in the forum. Now I will stop talking because I'm starting to feel whole, like talking about books and stuff like that, being the nearly only resources we had. But anyway, thanks for having thanks for having me though. Thanks for being on my show, Ali. And I think that's gonna be the end of the day for me. I'm saying stupid thing right now. Thanks for everybody who joined live. Thanks for everybody who's going to watch the recording. Thanks for all the questions and comments. That was pretty nice. And join me in 2 weeks plus 1 day. So on 16th of October, I'm having David G. Simons has my guest. So that's going to be another interesting DevRel show. We're going to have fun. So thanks again, Hallie. And thanks, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.